All right, I'm recording, so this will just be for our internal group to use as a reference, guys, because not everyone can make it live. Hope you're okay with that. If not, then you can put your video on hide, but just let me know. All right, I'm just going to stream this to our internal group as well. Nutrition seminar, and put it through, and then we'll get started. Sylvia, can you hear me there? I'm actually going to pop my headphones in because it will connect. Alrighty. So, got it. All right.
Can you hear me? Yep, thumbs up if you can hear me. Do this? Yes, sweet. Okay, looks like Andrea's coming on. And alrighty. Okay, can everyone now see the PowerPoint? Thumbs up if you can see the PowerPoint. Beautiful. Alrighty. Well, look, we might have people jumping in as we go along. Look, if you've got questions along the way, feel free to drop them in the chat. And I can help get to them as we go. If you're watching via the Facebook group or you're watching a recording, feel free to drop questions in the comments and I can get to them as well. All right, now this is actually one of our original seminars. So we do one on nutrition, one on exercise, one on the My Vision, and then a shopping tour as well. This one basically forms the fundamentals of concepts that we should be using day to day, but it explains a bit of the reasons why we have our carbohydrates, our proteins, our fats, and it is really fundamental to understanding the way we sort of guide our nutrition strategies here. So we'll get rolling. If you do not have a copy of this, you should all have it. Then please let your trainer know, but a lot of the stuff we make reference to here is actually found in this book, Ready, Set, Go. So please make sure you got your hands on a copy of that one. If you don't have one, please let your trainer know, but you should definitely have one. That has got a lot of, so from this seminar as well as the exercise seminar, a huge number of concepts in that one. Now, question to roll with or to start with, from an eating perspective, why do so many people exercise regularly, appear to eat healthy, but still rarely seem to achieve their desired goals of achieving a better body shape? This is often a question we often get faced with because there's a lot of people that they're exercising really well and they are actually eating really healthy, but they're not actually achieving their goals of the body composition they're looking for. And you know, a lot of people can overcomplicate nutrition. A lot of also people are, you know, they might be eating for more a fitness goal or something that's not quite specific to what they're actually trying to achieve. So what we're going to explore is like understanding how to get it right and how to taper it or tailor it to your specific goals of body composition or body shape. If your goal is more fitness or something more specific as well, like your nutrition plan actually needs to be adapted towards that with that outcome in mind as well. But basically if we're looking at eating and exercise, when it comes to body composition and weight loss, I'm sure you guys have all heard this before, but 70% of the equation is nutrition and 30% exercise. That's not to say that, like, some people look at this and think, oh, like that means exercise is important. That's definitely not what we're saying at all. It is super important. It's actually more to do with the fact that the frequency at which we should be eating, or which we believe, accounts for a bit like more like 70% of the equation when it comes to, you know, what we have to think about with meal prep and the volume of exercise we need to do. So we generally recommend 5 to 6 small meals a day aligned with meal frequency and energy balance. And if you think about a whole given week of 7 days, that's like 42 meals in a week where you've got the potential to do really good things or potentially undo a lot of effort. Okay. If you compare that with exercise, then it's probably very unlikely you're going to be doing 42 sessions of exercise a week. Probably more in that, 5 to maybe 10 if you're doing heaps. Okay. So that's where we get the 70-30. So we just want to get the nutrition right. Exercise is super important for maintaining lean body mass, burning fat as well. And that is going to be, in terms of body composition, absolutely necessary. But when it comes to stripping back those calories, and if we're looking at fat loss, then nutrition is going to be a massive player. Okay. Some of the main problems as we see it, and this is what we're going to cover off tonight, eating too many carbohydrates, the timing of carbohydrates, so pre and post exercise and at nighttime, not getting enough protein, not enough good fat, too much alcohol, and not getting that meal frequency in. Okay. We're going to start with carbohydrates. Now, a lot of people, they come in here and they say, oh, I need to cut carbohydrates. And I think before we sort of kind of just say cut carbohydrates, it's important to know what's going on there. Carbohydrates, if we're exercising or we've got carbs in our body, if we eat, a gel or a bit of sugar, it's burnt immediately. That's the macronutrients, so between carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, that the body's going to want to go to first. It's the most readily available, so we're gonna burn it immediately. If we're resting, so we don't actually need energy right at that point, and we ingest the carbohydrate, we're going to go and store it in the muscles and liver. Okay, so muscles, it'll be stored there so that we can use our muscles and move. And then the liver, it's sent there so that it can be sent to other organs around the body. Okay. Now we refer to that as the carb tank. So the carb tank is just a representation of the capacity you can store carbohydrates in the body. So we often use the water bottle analogy. 600 to 700 grams for the average person. It does vary from person to person depending on your muscle mass. It's a big factor. Okay. But once we eat more than that, what happens is the body's basically like, oh, well, I don't need it for short term. Okay. I don't need it for medium term. All right. So I'm going to go and store it as fat, and storing energy in the adipose tissue. It's like the body thinks it's getting ready to store muscles for the long winter or something. Okay. And it just can't hold any more carbohydrates. So it's got to put it somewhere. So it overflows basically, and it's stored as fat. Okay. Now, for us to burn that fat, we actually need to reduce the carb tank. Really simply put, we want to reduce that carb tank, and then we're going to start burning fat, because the body is always going to want to burn carbs first, just because it's easier for it to burn that energy source. Okay. So a couple of points on that, guys. That first one is what I just mentioned. The body cannot burn fat after carbohydrates have been consumed. That's thanks largely due to the anabolic hormone insulin. So when we ingest a carbohydrate, a sugar, blood sugars go up. The pancreas will secrete a hormone insulin, and the presence of insulin inhibits the process lipolysis, which is one of the early stages in fat burning. Okay, so it blunts our ability to burn fat. All right. One thing to consider, and this is why we do recommend a high volume of low to moderate cardio, and we get more into detail of this in the exercise seminar. People will generally increase their food intake and after high doses of high intensity exercise. Those high intensity bouts of exercise, we are using a lot more carbohydrates, and the body's going to replenish those carbohydrates. Okay, so that's why we actually recommend more low to moderate cardio. On a high percentage carbohydrate diet, the body simply has no other source of energy to use. So if you're only eating carbs, it's only going to learn how to burn carbs. If we want to learn how to burn fat, then we need to have fats in there too, and shift out some of those other calories, namely the carbohydrates. Okay. And the other thing to consider, guys, carbs do require a lot of exercise to burn off. So if you're looking at, reducing the amount of calories in or increasing the amount of exercise, it's a really simple scenario when you look at some of the exercise versus energy comparisons. So for instance, if you're having a banana, it's going to take you about 30 to 40 minutes on the treadmill to burn through that one banana. So I say, okay, well, if I have, am I going to make the decision to just be careful on the amount of carbohydrates I'm having, or am I prepared to do literally like 10 to 20 hours of exercise a week? And it's a pretty simple answer when it becomes around effectively losing weight. Okay. Now, some people see all those slides and like, oh shit, I can't have any carbohydrates. That's definitely not what we're saying. Carbohydrates are really essential for energy, for building lean muscle tissue, maintaining normal bodily function. So we do prescribe a set amount of carbohydrates for you to hit. It's just a matter of having carbohydrates that, high in vitamins and minerals, which we'll go through in just a sec. Okay. Essential for fiber and gut health, okay, especially yogurts, etc., which isn't necessarily carbohydrate, but there is lactose in those, which is a sugar. Low fat, higher carbohydrate foods may be bad for you, okay? So that's when we're getting carbohydrates that really high in sugar, okay, and there's no fat, so it absorbs into the body really fast. So it increases what we call the glycemic load. And when the sugar comes in really fast, then it spikes insulin higher, and we have there's an increased chance of that storing as fat. Okay. Sounds a bit strange. When we have a fat with a carb, though, it'll actually slow down that the speed at which the carbohydrates come into the body, which can prevent that insulin going so high and reduces the risk of it turning into fat. So it sounds a bit crazy when you put it like that, but having a bit of fat with the carb can actually help slow down the insulin response. Your carbohydrate, the amount that you're prescribed varies based on your activity levels, your body type, and your lean body mass, which is essentially your muscles, okay? Because the more muscles you've got, the bigger the storage capacity of those carbs. That's why it's so important to get at least those 2 to 3 strength sessions in a week so you can maintain that. Otherwise, you're just going to be shrinking your muscles, and you're going to have less and less and less carbohydrates to an unsustainable amount. And that's when people bounce back up in their weight, okay? We definitely want to avoid simple sugars, so your sweets and everything, okay? These are the main types we look at when it comes to poor, moderate, and best choices. Now, guys, in the online shopping tour, we went a lot more detail into this. So I'd suggest seeing that recording or checking out the next one we're doing. We will do a live shopping tour as well, which is actually when we go to the supermarket, and that's a bit more hands-on. But definitely check out that online shopping tour. Basically, your poor choices, guys. This is your pastries, cakes, chocolate, chips, biscuits, the classic ones. You don't need to be a genius to know these aren't good for you. High in fat and carbs and low in vitamins and minerals. Okay. Now, the problem with that is they will, like the sugars, the real simple sugars and those not so good fats, okay, that come from those sources will lead to the insulin response, and you'll get a big rush of energy, okay? Then you'll often get that drop, and you'll crave more of that pretty quickly. There's no benefit vitamins and minerals either, so it's not really doing much to nourish your body. It's kind of like it's a wasted opportunity. I think of these meals as a wasted opportunity to nourish the body as well as it deserves. Okay, it's like putting cheap petrol in the tank. You wouldn't do it if you owned a nice car. You wouldn't put the cheap stuff in because you care about the car. Same with you. Don't put this stuff in your body. It's not good for your engine, and you only get one. So that's another way to think about it. Lost opportunity to have something good by having these ones. Moderate choices are your classic starchy carbohydrates. So breads, rice, potatoes, pasta, cereals. I would tend to avoid fruit juice and dried fruits personally. These ones higher in carbs, lower in fat, okay, which, so less total calories. And I know this sounds counterintuitive to what I was saying in the previous slide when you want a fat pair, but you don't have any of, you're not looking at those saturated, the bad fats in these ones, okay? Now, of those moderate choices, again, we can get quite specific in what you want to go for here, but with your breads, you're looking at things like soy and linseed, okay? Because it's got good fats in there, will actually help slow down the carbohydrate absorption, okay? And lots of fiber. So it can help create a level of satiety, so a feeling of fullness for longer. With your rice, basmati and brown, okay? I would then say quinoa as well in this mix. Pasta ranks a little bit lower in terms of the moderate choices that you should be going with. And then potatoes, some people are sweet potato, normal potato, not a huge amount of difference. If you're really looking for a substitute for things like potatoes, you'd be going down to this bottom level for your best choices, okay? Best choices, guys, all your fruit and vegetables and salads, okay? You'd want to be careful on root-based vegetables just because they're starchier. So root-based things like carrots, corn, turnips, beetroots, you just got to be careful on those ones because they do have a higher amount of carbohydrate per gram. Really good ones are those green, alkaline, cruciferous vegetables, okay? That can also help to improve visceral fat. Nightshades, if your gut is okay with it, can help stimulate the metabolism a little bit. So things like capsicum, chili, that can actually help stimulate the metabolism. Green leafy vegetable, I know it's like, you know, $6-7 for an iceberg lettuce at the moment, so maybe wait until prices come down a bit there. We're subbing for some cabbage instead. But capsicum, tomatoes, all these ones, really, really, really good. Okay, so more of that on your plate if you can, and you want your plate to be about half of these ones, okay, down the bottom, and then you'd probably go a quarter protein, and then depending on what the day's like, maybe some, you know, grain in there, okay, depending on what your macros are. If you've got a bit left, I wouldn't be going more than like a quarter of your plate of moderate choices, okay. Guys, remember as well, you can drop questions in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself at any point, feel free to and ask a question. That's all good. Now, timing and types of carbohydrates. So, guys, if you have tuned out, please listen on this slide because this is an important one. Some people get quite confused around the timing of meals, but this is really important to know. So, actually, I've got a nutritionist who I see, and he terms this really well. He says you want to front load your day. So that means you want basically more calories at the front end of your day because that's where you're going to be burning more calories just because you're up, you're moving, you're more active. So there's less chance of that being stored as fat. Now, this is particularly the case when it comes to carbohydrates, okay? We want to have more carbs in the morning and then slowly drop the amount we're having through the day. So there's a decreased risk of those carbohydrates going through lipogenesis and turning to fat, which is not what we want. Protein, the inverse of that, because we've got to make up the calories somewhere. And most of your proteins are probably more palatable at nighttime. I don't like having steak at breakfast. I prefer to have it at nighttime. So that's kind of the inverse relationship there. If I had fats here, I'd say fats probably even keel through the day just to keep your blood sugar levels constant. Okay, we'll go through fats in a little bit. Okay, so that's just your general day-to-day. But when it comes to exercise, this is really important, especially if you're in a goal to improve body composition, i.e. lose fat mass and stay strong, so keep a healthy muscle mass, okay? Now, these are two separate lines. Now, when we do a cardio session, especially a high intensity cardio session or a group class, the goal and outcome we're looking for is fat loss, okay? Now, if we already know, based on those previous slides, that the body is always going to prefer going to carbohydrates, and we've got that carb tank, we know that we can't burn fat when that carb tank is full, right? We're going to just burn through those carbohydrates. So one way we can assist the body and make it easier to tap into those fat stores if we can do a bit of fasting, so 2 to 3 hours if it's in the afternoon, or even going without breakfast if you're training in the morning before that cardio session, okay? You will actually burn carbohydrates in the session. So this next point is really important, where you stay fasted for 1 hour after that cardio session. This is where something called your respiratory exchange ratio, which just represents the amount of fuel you're burning, switches, and you're burning a huge amount more of fat. Okay, so we're really optimizing our fat burn here. The reason we say 1 hour, you could actually do it for 2 to 3 hours, because your respiratory exchange ratio stays really low, which means when I say it's really low, that means you're burning more fat for about 2 to 3 hours after that high intensity exercise. Okay, we say 1 hour, okay, just because if you think about it, if you're fasting 2 to 3 hours before cardio, then 2 to 3 hours after, that's like literally half a day you're not eating, and that's just not realistic. So 1 hour, that's a good, really solid effort to maximize fat loss. Okay. Now with weight, the goal is different in our weight session. The purpose of weight session is not to be burning fat. Okay. One of the side effects may be that you're burning more fat because you're burning more calories, but the goal of the weights is to maintain our muscle so that we can actually improve body composition, because the goal really isn't weight loss in most cases, and most people listening to this, the goal is to lose fat. If we want to be healthier, look not like have the body composition look better, then it's around maintaining that lean muscle mass and losing fat. Okay, so before a weight session, the timing's not so important. Okay, you can even have a bit of food before weight so that you feel you've got the energy to push out, go for a PB or go for a heavy weight. You want to feel like you've got energy. Then straight after, so a weight session, we're pulling those muscle fibers apart, and we're actually creating little micro tears and damaging the muscles. How they grow back bigger and stronger is when they rest. And one of the really important points around that recovery is that 30-minute window after your weight session, your muscle fibers are screaming for what we call amino acids. And that's found in those protein shakes that we go on about. So protein, you get your protein within 30 minutes, and 30 minutes they're absolutely screaming. So they're just way more receptive to intaking this protein. And that is going to give you the highest chance of gaining or maintaining muscle while still on a calorie deficit. So we can say, hey, we're going to lose the fat, but we're going to look amazing and be stronger and fitter, rather than just losing all this weight and be weight that some of the weight we want to keep on. Okay. Now, some people may be asking, what happens if I'm doing cardio and weight, like back to back? What you can do, if you're doing a short, sharp, hard cardio session, that's okay. Going straight into a weight session, and you can still have a really high protein shake with low carbohydrates straight after that cardio session. That's okay. We just want it to be low carbohydrate. Okay. And then after the hour, then start to fuel yourself. Okay. Look, an optimal world, you're sort of doing cardio and weights in different parts of the day, but again, that's, just not realistic. So if the goal is weight loss and it happens that you're doing hard cardio, then straight into weights, that's better overall than not being able to do one or the other, or missing a training volume or frequency. Okay. But if you're doing cardio and weights back to back, then a protein shake is going to be your best fit there. Okay. Or if you're going to have something, try and make it lower carbohydrate. Caffeine. Okay. Anyone drink coffee here? Yep, a few people. I do. I love it. So this is, look, I haven't come across this in a long time. I've had many questions about this in a long time, but it is an ingredient, a lot of slimming tablets, caffeine's added, fat burners, all this sort of stuff. It can actually help increase what we call lipolysis and fat oxidation. Okay. It gets the action potentials of the muscle firing at a lot higher rate. Okay. So that's why it's in some pre-workouts, or caffeine, but stacks and stacks and stacks of caffeine, which we definitely don't recommend. But it can help increase the alertness, and it can actually help increase the power output that you're actually pushing through the muscle in a session. Okay, so it does have the ability to do that. So look, if you're having a coffee in the morning before a session, that might not be such a bad idea. I've with some clients as well, and talk about this with your trainer, if you're doing that low to moderate session first thing in the morning, faster cardio, like a black coffee, can help increase your heart rate and just tap into those fat stores a little bit, just assist it a little bit. Okay. Definitely don't condone too much caffeine. Okay. Now it's going to vary from person to person depending on your caffeine sensitivity. I know, look, you guys might be able to correct me on some studies you've seen as well, potentially, but I wouldn't, like, if you're going a study I've seen, more than 4 a day over the course of a week, then you can increase your risk of cardiovascular disease. That's from a study I've seen. There's probably a lot of other studies out there, so you definitely don't want to overdo it. Me personally, I'll have one first thing in the morning, or maybe 30 minutes after waking up, and then mid-morning. And I'm not having coffee after about 11 or 12. I'll switch to decaf. I love coffee, so I'll go decaf just for the flavor and the taste of it. And that'll just get me through. There's sometimes a bit of a placebo, I reckon, in some of those the decaf. But the thing is, like with some people that I know and clients, they can become a bit dependent on coffee, and they're having so much that it's kind of interrupting the circadian rhythms. So basically a sleep-wake cycle. So if you're having coffee, like literally the first thing of waking up, then you can blunt your body's natural wake up response of like secreting that cortisol level to wake you up naturally. And then you can sort of put it out of whack a bit. So that's why I'll generally wait at least like 30 minutes to just try and wake up naturally and then have a coffee. And then when I'm sort of getting a little bit of a drop in my natural cortisol level, I'm going to have a bit of a pickup in my melatonin. So I'm getting a bit sleepy through that first part of the day, have another coffee then just to lift me a little bit. Okay. 2 to 3 cups a day. Black coffee, green tea, they're the ones we generally recommend. I probably personally, again, wouldn't recommend the soft drinks, like even the sugar-free stuff. Yeah, if I'd go black coffee or green tea, and yeah, black tea, there's actually plenty of caffeine in those ones as well. All right, protein. Protein, I know a lot of people can struggle getting in protein. And the reasons why we do recommend it, and we really, like go on and on about it, is it is super important for tissue repair, muscle growth, to maintain your metabolism. So when we were talking about meal timing before, muscle mass, when we do our weights, we're damaging the muscle, and we're actually getting those results during our rest and recovery when it's growing back. They're growing back bigger and stronger. That's where protein does the work to come in, flood the muscles with those amino acids to make them bigger and stronger. It also just to help replace the existing protein stores. Okay, as we're exercising, we're just going to deplete what we've got, so we actually need to supplement more than we've had before. The other thing here is, this is a big one, and some studies will say this is the only reason why protein helps with weight loss, is because of the effect it has on your appetite. So protein can stimulate, it stimulates a neuropeptide that makes you feel essentially fuller for longer, and helps to reduce cravings for lots of other foods like high sugar, high fat foods. So it basically it blunts your appetite a little bit. Okay, it keeps you fuller longer. All right. So that's another big reason for it. The other thing with protein, to break down protein versus breaking down carbohydrates and fat, it requires the body to use a lot more energy to break it down. Okay, so that the metabolizing food actually has a metabolic effect on the body in that we're actually using calories to break down food. That's a thermic effect of food, which we'll talk about in a sec. But the energy that's required to break down protein is really high. So if we held all other things equal, this is just an example down the bottom here. If you were to increase your intake from 15 to 30% of your calories, so if your protein consumption represented 30% of your energy intake from 15%, you'll burn extra calories equivalent to approximately 2.5 kilos over 12 months. So what that's saying is, if all you did, okay, you held everything else constant and you basically doubled the percentage representation of protein that you're having, you'll lose 2.5 kilos of fat over 12 months. So it's an absolute no-brainer when it comes to body composition and burning fat that we're looking at protein as a really important step in that journey to lose fat mass. Okay, so super important. Proteins, what's good for us? So if we're not vegetarian, lean meats. Okay, so lean chicken. That chicken breast is the leanest and without the skin. Okay, lean turkey, lean lamb. So lamb backstrap, loin, lean beef, lean pork. Fish is awesome too. Okay, fish will be higher in some fatty acids, some of which are actually pretty good for us as well. Quinoa, that's more carbohydrate, but it's a carbohydrate that naturally has more proteins occurring in there. Yogurt's a great source, really good for the gut health as well. Chobani is my favorite, much higher protein to carbohydrate ratios and low fat. Low fat milk, a lot of other like amazing minerals in milk as well compared to like almond milk and everything. Low fat will just help keep control of the calories. Cottage cheese, great source of protein, again, lower in fat. Tofu, egg whites, lentils, soy, and protein supplementation, okay? When you're having eggs, guys, the yolk will have a lot more fat. So we sometimes say, cool, have lean to having more whites, less yolk. We don't want to cut out the yolk completely though. Eggs are actually a really, really, really good source of protein. They've got all of what we call the branch chain and essential amino acids, okay? Which it's a full protein. So it contains basically proteins are made up of a series of amino acids. Some sources have like a lot of them, but not all of them. Eggs are really good. The yolk and the white together have all of them. But if we're going, say, like an egg white omelet, you'd want to keep that ratio of around 2 to 3 whites to at least 1 yolk, okay, to keep that ratio right. All right. Protein supplementation, that's one, like, to be honest, straight after a weight session, just the timeliness of it, the speed at which protein will get into your blood and able to repair those muscles. There's no more effective way than to have a protein shake. It's going to be quicker than having a steak or something. But like, to be honest, if your protein levels are high throughout the whole day, it means you have to rely less on that protein shake. But still, I would definitely recommend it. You got vegan sources, you got natural ingredients. Every supermarket's got it. We've got it. It's quick and easy. You can have it with water. You can have it with light milk. Yeah, I am an advocate for that. And I don't take many supplements, protein and a couple of minerals, but I think that's super important. Good fats. So fat's super important and they can actually help increase our fat burning. So eating more fat burns more fat. I'll explain the reasons why. But the other thing as well, it can help too. So good fats, help lower blood pressure, lower cholesterol, and the chances of developing heart disease. The reason for that is good fats contain more what we call HDL, so high density lipoproteins versus low density lipoproteins, which are in more saturated fats. Okay, now I'm going to use a really simple analogy. So HDLs and LDLs are fat proteins, and they essentially carry cholesterol around the body. Okay, now if we think of a HDL, so like a good fat, as we want to think about that as we got a big boat, okay, and it can carry a little ball of cholesterol in that, and it's sailing through the ocean, okay. And then we've got an LDA, so a bad fat. Now the LDLs are small little boats, but the cholesterol is the same size, okay. Now we've got a big boat with a cholesterol, a small boat with a cholesterol, and as they're sailing through the water, the water's going to be a bit rocky. This big boat is going to be able to see out and get that cholesterol moving to where it's meant to go. And so basically getting it to where it's meant to go. This small boat with the cholesterol the same size or even the same amount is going to have a pretty hard time staying stable. It can capsize, and those cholesterols or the cargo can end up on shore, okay? Now, what's happening there, if we think about that as a not so good fat that's trying to carry cholesterols around the body, that crashing, it's basically representation of our plaques, our arteries, and those cholesterol spilling off and collecting around our arteries. Okay, now that's where you can get a buildup of cholesterol in the arterial walls, narrowing of the arteries, fat deposits where it shouldn't be, because those LDLs aren't doing a good as job at carrying those cholesterols to where they're meant to be. Good news is you can get those big boats or those good fats to come along, pick up those cholesterols, take them where they're meant to go, and decrease the risk of heart disease, reduce the cholesterol, move it away from it. It's meant to be, lower blood pressure, reduce heart disease, okay? So that comes from good fats, which we're going to go through with examples in a sec. Normally I do that on a whiteboard, guys, so I hope my little story made sense there. But the other benefit of having good fats is it actually teaches the body to burn fats. Okay, so you're training the body to learn how to burn fats, and that way, when you do start exercising, the body can tap into those fat stores more frequently. Okay. What's going on here? Okay. A few other points, guys. So with good fats, fats will absorb into the body a lot slower than carbohydrates. So this is what I was talking about a few slides back. When you have a good fat with a carbohydrate, it can help lower the insulin level, so it can balance blood sugar levels. Okay, manufacture sex and adrenal hormones, so estrogen, testosterone, cortisol, melatonin. All these hormones are derived from cholesterol. Okay, so it is actually essential we have cholesterols and good cholesterol so that we can manufacture more of these hormones so that the body can do what it's meant to do. Okay, maintain a core body temperature, so that's keeping immunity strong and just homeostasis and all the functions of the body. This core body temperature and this body temperature is really important to maintain a lot of our bodily functions. And it also helps to transport essential vitamins A, D, E, and K. So these are all what we call fat soluble vitamins. So if we had those vitamins without a fat present, there's an increased risk that it's just going to pass through the body. It's harder to absorb, and so we call it bioavailability. So those fats can help get those vitamins into the body and utilized properly. Okay. Also know that some fats contain essential fatty acids. So essential just means that we cannot derive that from an internal process in the body. We need to get it from an external source, i.e. food or a supplement. Okay, so those are essential fatty acids. Omega-6 and omega-3 are the ones we need to find through the diet. Okay, omega-6 in lots of oils, omega-3 in lots of cold water fish and some plants. As a Western population, we actually some people can actually have too much omega-6 because they're having too many of these oils and a bit of a shortage on omega-3s. So that's where we sort of lean into including fish in the diet. The less restricted you are in your diet, the greater availability of these vitamins and minerals you'll be able to get in, and some plants as well. Okay, so things like chia seeds, nuts, and other seeds are really good. But other good fats, guys, so just examples here. So olive oil, raw nuts, canola oil, avocados. These aren't necessarily considered essential, okay, but they are good fats. When people ask me about oils and what should I have, what shouldn't I have, what my recommendation here is actually to have oils to your palate and to what you're cooking with. The one, so that if that means sesame oil, avocado oil, macadamia nut oil, olive oil, that's all kind of like, that's all fine, okay? Coconut oil is one I'd be careful of unless using it as moisturizer. But with coconut oil, it's really high saturated fat, so that kind of fits into here. It does have a higher boiling point. It depends again which study you read. I don't have it in my diet. When I tried keto for like an experiment, lasted 9 weeks, I was having more of it. I wouldn't personally recommend it. With some of these oils, they get a bad rap because they're found in margarines. That's when they can get pretty nasty. So if these oils are heated to a point and then then served when they're in non-liquid form and the fat changes, like it oxidizes, and then you ingest it, then the carcinogenic properties. Okay, so you just want to be careful, and it can, not be so good. But in general, you're wanting to go 2/3 these good fats, and then 1/3 from some of these saturated fats, which can be higher in those LDLs. So these fats are generally from animal and dairy products. So meat, eggs, cream, milk, cheese, coconut, palm oil, vegetable shortening, margarine. So you want to be careful on the saturated. Not going to say cut out red meat, but you definitely want to be careful. If you if you test high, if you've got a high level of cholesterol, your doctor may send you to a dietitian, nutritionist who gives you a bit more specifics on what you do for yourself. So if you are fitting into that bracket where you're at risk of cardiovascular disease and your cholesterol is high, then this may be something where you are, tailoring a bit more to you, okay? Alcohol. So with alcohol, guys, this is a greedy calorie, all right? So 1 gram of alcohol will give you 29 kilojoules of energy, okay, or 7 calories, all right, which is the equivalent of, so gram for gram, you'll get about like a carbohydrate or about half that amount of energy, and you've got almost the same amount of energy as a gram of fat, okay? So there is a lot of calories in alcohol, okay, regardless of what the form is, all right? And then you throw in all the other ingredients on top of the alcohol, and then you're really driving up the calories ingested. Now, the problem here is alcohol, again, I'm going to use a simple analogy. When you drink alcohol, it's got to be processed by the liver to clear it. So I sometimes like to describe alcohol as a poison that the body wants to get rid of. And if the liver is too busy trying to clear alcohol, then it's got no space to burn carbohydrates and fats. Okay, we need the liver functioning at greater capacity to emulsify fats, to burn our other macronutrients so we can tap into those fat stores. Okay, so it blunts a bit the fat burning process. And if we went back to our carbohydrate tank, we got carbs, then fats. Alcohol is just another level. We've got to go alcohol, then carbs, then fats. Okay, so it's just going to add to the queue. All right. With alcohol, guys, if we looked at 10 mils of alcohol, so of pure alcohol, so if you looked at, vodka, 30%, that's a shot. That's about 20 carbs. Okay, so we're just looking at energy equivalents here, which is the same to an apple, slice of bread, or potato. That's just purely alcohol with nothing else. You then just start to throw in a mixer or alcohol with beer or alcohol with wine, you've got the calories will start to bump up. Okay, so we could say this is just one example of alcohol in a mixer. 40 carbs, which is the same as 2 apples, 2 slices of bread, or 2 potatoes. Okay, so it stacks up pretty quickly with alcohol. If you're an 80-kilo person having a bourbon and Coke, that's 20 minutes on, like, that's fast. That's professional triathletes doing Ironman speed on a bike for 20 minutes, okay, to burn off 1 drink. Okay, schooner of beer, 35 minutes of walking at a fairly brisk pace. So that's just slower than a run for 35 minutes. That's a lot of exercise for just 1 beer. It's a schooner. And a glass of red wine, that's 11 minutes on the rower. Okay. And the rower is not super duper easy either. That's a pretty metabolically demanding exercise. So look, it just kind of gives you another perspective when you are having that alcohol to think, is it really worth it? Is this, you know, what can I adjust? Like if I'm having 5 wines on a weekend or an hour in a week, or, you know, what if I cut down to 2? And what sort of difference is that going to make on my goal? If I cut down to 0, it's dry July. How big a difference is that going to be? I think small change is always better. So wherever you're at with wines, beers, or spirits, or if that even features at all, making small adjustments there is the way to go. Because you, at the end of the day, you do want to, you know, you're doing this for your health and fitness and to be happy as well. And glass of wine here or there is a nice thing to be able to have, but definitely in moderation as well. And yeah, that's probably the best way to think about there. What I do know there, guys, when people are reducing alcohol, they see results fast. If they've got a goal and they want to achieve it, and alcohol does feature, especially with body composition goal, the weight can drop pretty fast. And I think that comes from, one is the calorie effect, but the second one is also, you know, just the effect it has on hormones, testosterone, especially in males, that hormonal balance, just to get more out of our sessions when we're doing weights, doing cardio, more energy, feeling better, just getting more out of our day-to-day. But just a few tips, guys, when it comes to reducing alcohol: using water, soft drinks as mixers, choosing low alcohol beer. We even got 0 alcohol beer and 0 alcohol gin, 0 alcohol wines. I know that was that was a big thing that came around last year. And one of the things with drinking can be, you know, on social occasions, and you want to have a drink in your hand. I think those non-alcohol variations there are really high value, and I think they do serve their purpose really well. So if you haven't tried them, I'd recommend giving them a try. Definitely be aware of the foods that you consume prior to and while drinking, to ensure that carbohydrate and fat content is too high. Alcohol decreases inhibitions. We do silly stuff, and one of those things is eating the wrong foods. So just be careful. Be aware of the foods you're eating the days following drinking, especially if you're feeling a bit rusty, had one too many, and you're going for those foods to try and curb that hangover. Definitely wouldn't recommend a super high intensity exercise session. One of the reasons being that you're dehydrated, your body, it does take a bit out of you if you have a few drinks. So low to moderate if you're having a few drinks, and definitely staying well hydrated, and maybe even looking for some sodium tablets like Hydralyte if you had a couple of drinks, to just hold on to the water that you'll be losing at a lot more rapid rate from the alcohol. Okay, it is a diuretic, so you'll just lose a lot more water. So having something like a Hydralyte can help, especially in summer. Alrighty, so eating frequency, guys. This is where we are burning fat in the carbohydrate fire, or just in the thermic effect of food fire. Now, just as exercise stimulates your metabolism, eating 5 to 6 small meals a day stimulates your metabolism as well. So this is because every time you eat a meal, you're actually got to use you've got to use energy to break down the food. Okay. It just comes down to food prep, guys, being disciplined, being organized. The more on top of these things you are, the easier it will be to manage. I know for some people that means doing food prep 3 days in advance, maybe on a Sunday or a period of week that is going to work for you, where you batch cook for a few days a week, use a freezer. Nice time to switch off as well. Cooking can be quite therapeutic, so make the most of those opportunities if you got them. But yeah, like this is a big one. And when your body starts telling you to eat every few hours, like that's a sign that your metabolism's actually kicking into gear and it's working. Okay. And training the body to do that's actually a good thing. Okay. Still want to be, careful on those portions. We don't want big, like heaps of big meals, lots of little small meals to keep that energy balance. We just looked at this in a little diagram here. I like this one. So you got a 12-hour day, 7 till 7. If you were just having 2 meals a day, one in the morning, one in the evening, those triangles would represent the amount of energy that you've burnt. Okay. Now, if you start to introduce a 3rd, 4th, 5th meal through the day, what's happening there? Those are opportunities at which your body is working to break down that food and burn energy. Okay. So you're burning that much more energy, which is the equivalent of a 30-minute hard cardio session. Okay. So just by increasing your meal frequency to 2 to 5 meals a day, that process, the thermic effect of food, you're burning the amount of calories that you would burn in a 30-minute hard cardio session. Okay. That's another reason why we talk about it being 70% nutrition, 30% exercise. Okay. And it's one way to, if you're short on time, to make a really quick, effective change to what you're doing to get some better results. If you struggle with meal frequency, guys, Vision Ready Meals, you can go with that, guys. On your first order, guys, if you put in Vision 25, you'll get $25 off. The reason I like these and why I've used them in the past, I don't use them at the moment because I got my food prep pretty dialed in, but times where I haven't, I've used these for lunch and dinner, is because they're made to order. I can change them every week rather than it being full of sodium and preservatives, which I don't like. I know that they don't have that. Throw it in the fridge. Worst case scenario, I miss one, I throw it in the freezer and then just defrost it. Tastes pretty good. You can get medium or large. And the other thing as well, it really helps with portion control. Because when you got that, you put it straight in your food diary, scan it in, and it makes it a little bit easier. So if that's something you do struggle with, guys, like meal prep, or you've been giving it a good hard crack for a while, or you've got something where you might be busier at work, then just jump on the app, guys. Ask your trainer. It's on the email as well that goes around. Chef Good are the ones we partner with that can help there. Now, guys, look, I know you guys know how this works. Judy with grandkids calls, all good. Tina and Ian, thank you for joining us. So, guys, one of the important facts I want to talk about here, and this is going to wrap us up after this. So it's so important because nutrition, so this fits in the greater context of helping you achieve your goals. One of the things that we want to know firstly, we need to know exactly what the goal is so that we can prescribe the best for you. Now, that might be general health, might be fat loss, might be muscle gain, might be you're training for an event. But for us to help you the most, the more information, the more planning we can go into doing that, the better chance of success. So every 9 weeks, we really want to make sure we do those goal sessions so that we can set the goal here. So an example might be 7 kilos fat loss, okay, by the 21st of August, all right? Now, that's where we can get really specific on the macros that you'd need to be sitting at to lose that. And we can track it every single day, every week, and do our weekly check-ins, okay? So we got the deadline. The way I like to use weekly goals are then to start to focus on process goals. And we go into this in other seminars, but look at things, actions you can take that week to move the dial. So it might be an exercise related goal, cycle for 30 minutes on a Tuesday, Thursday. It might be to log the food diary on a Monday to Friday, to reduce alcohol from 5 drinks to 2 drinks, from 10 drinks to 5 drinks. Okay, these process goals. We can keep you accountable to that. And if you do a weekly goal, you might even win a free haircut down the road, or a recovery boot, or even a bottle of wine as well, if you're really good. But the accountability there, guys, that's what's going to get you the results long term. That's why we keep then checking in every 9 weeks, so we can reset the dial, see where we're moving, and keep you on point with that. Okay. Guys, we are going to leave it there. We are just before 7:30, so we've done a lot better for time than the shopping tour. There's a stack of content there, guys. If you want to, if anything you're struggling with, feel free to throw a comment on this, send us an email. I always recommend as well, guys, if nutrition is something you're struggling with, there's no better way than to go through with your trainer, do a little revision nutrition session, and apply some of these concepts to your daily plans. If you've got things that are really specific to you, that's I think nutrition sessions once every 12 weeks, once every 6 months, if it's something you need, then definitely lean into that to see how we can help and tailor things a bit more for you. Alrighty. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you, Andrea. Feel free to unmute yourself there if you got any questions. Otherwise, we are going to wrap it up there. Remember, guys, drop in any questions in the chat here. We've got trivia in a couple of weeks on Tuesday, the 26th of July at 6:30 p.m. All right, so I'll be looking forward to that one. Our next shopping tour will be coming soon as well, so just check on the apps for the dates for that one. I'll be doing another online seminar next month. So stay tuned, guys. Good on you for listening and joining, and I'll see you next time. Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Bye.